In the session today, we'll provide an overview of the NNDR Central payment system, what the current position is, including the benefits of moving across and feedback on the current service. We'll also run through the claims template and what data is needed for that, followed by a demo of the service. Also included is an overview of how rates are handled in the accounts and a brief timeline for 25-26. So ESFA moved to the central payment process in April 2022, the objective being to streamline and simplify the circular funding process by removing schools and academies from the process and ESFA taking over the payments of billing authorities. What is important to note is that the changes don't represent a change in funding levels, but represent a more streamlined system which restructures how the NNDR is funded from within the schools block. The hybrid process will continue for next year. Therefore, it does remain optional for billing authorities in 25-26. For next year, the same criteria will also apply as in previous years. So in two-tier areas, all the district authorities must agree to be able to shift across to the central system. We're now in the third year of the NNDR Central approach rollout. The numbers of BAs has steadily increased each year. We now have 70% of the billing authorities opted into the central system. For this financial year, we have processed over 15,000 individual school property claims, with 86 of these claims being paid immediately. As it currently stands, the 96% of claims received for the 24-25 financial year have been paid in full. The small percentage of claims that have been held are due to queries, and for those cases, we are working with billing authorities to get these resolved and paid. Looking at the benefits of the central system, there's probably two key benefits. The first being that there's no lagging funding for local authorities, as the bills are paid in real time, it also minimises the pressure on school budgets. As a rough indication, around £6 million across to LAs that were opted out could have been picked up by the ESFA and funded in year. The other benefits do include that there's a single payment from ESFA. The adjustments are paid in year, so any bills, any reevaluations, etc., are paid in real time. There's a single point of contact to manage any queries, and after the initial setup, the process is easy to administer, and that is reflected in the feedback from the users. We do seek to make continuous improvements to the service and recently undertook some user research with several billing authorities, with the overall feedback being positive. A couple of the pain points that were flagged to us we have addressed, and these related mainly to the validation and the property reference numbers. So in terms of the validation, the changes have been reviewed by the content designers and the error messaging has been restructured. We've also reworked or reworded the guidance, so hopefully makes it clearer for users on what they need to do to ensure that they meet the validation rules when uploading. In terms of the school unique identifiers, we've now provided a link to get information about schools, so that's more visible to our users, so they can actually access the ESFA reference numbers that's needed for the claims template. We've also signposted to a published document that displays the schools that fall under the billing authority's remit, and this data is set out in the same port that is required for our claims template. So basically, billing authorities can do a lift and drop. What I will do now then is hand over to Dave, who will talk in more detail about the claims template and the data that's required for that.
So I'm going to give you an overview of completing the claim form, the eligible claims that you can include in it, and the payment process. So once you have access to the NNDR service, which we're going to demonstrate to you later on, you can then submit a claim form to us. Blank claim forms can be downloaded from our gov.uk page, and in the same location there's also some useful guidance detailing how to complete each of the columns in the form. The form itself is Excel based, so it's really user friendly to use, and it looks like the image at the bottom of this slide. For each claim, we'll ask you to confirm your school names, the addresses, the individual properties that you're claiming for, and then the value you want us to pay. When completing the form, you have two options. You can either take a blank form and then populate it directly from your own data source, or alternatively, the ESFA publishes a list of schools in your area, which are in the same format as the claim sheet. So this means you can just copy and paste them directly from the form, directly into the form, and then just add your account numbers and claim values if that's easier for you. If any schools are missing from the published list for any reason, for example, it's a new school, then you can manually add it to the sheet, just put it onto the bottom, and that'll go through at the same time as the other claims. In most cases, each school would have one row for the main building, the main school building, but where the school has a split site, so for example, if a school has a infants building and a junior building, then you're allowed to put two rows on the form for the same school. Once your claim form is fully completed, you can upload it to the portal for validation, and you can do this as many times as you want. So for example, if you identify an error on your first submission, then just resubmit, and it'll override the previous submission, or alternatively, if it's late adjustments that you want to add in, just put those in, resubmit, and they'll come through to us. When using the Excel form, we do ask that you don't amend the template in any way, as this will prevent the automated validation from running. And also don't add, remove, or rename any of the columns, because again, this may delay some of the validation steps. So in terms of eligibility, all local authority maintained schools and academies fall under this new claim process. And this includes any associated playing fields or other buildings used by the school if they're used directly for educational purposes. And just for clarification, our definition of educational purposes is that is used for lessons or lessons being taken in that space. A full list of eligible claims is published on our gov.uk page to assist when completing the form, so you are able to validate each of the claims before they are submitted to us. Some of the properties we'd not expect to see on your claim are school properties that are not used for educational purposes. So, for example, an office and premises which are used by admin staff, or again, a caretaker building which is not being used for lessons. So, also, we wouldn't expect to see nursery buildings in your claims, and this is unless it's part of the overall school and it's not possible to separate it out for individual rate billing. We'd also not expect to see rented buildings, FE institutions, private schools, or closed schools. Additionally, buildings like pupil referral units, special schools, and alternative provision schools should all receive 100% rate relief. So on this basis, if any of these schools do not meet the criteria set by VOA for 100% relief, then the expectation would be that the bills would be charged directly to the school. So in terms of payments, once your claim is submitted to us, we'll review it, it'll be validated, and then we'll arrange a payment. If we have any queries about the claim, we'll contact you for further clarification before we allow the payment to go through. Payments are automatically processed after the initial claims in June, and then at 2 reconciliation points in October and March. Most of the claims we do receive, though, are submitted to us at the start of the year, and so we paid the majority in June upfront. We also make monthly payments if required. So, for example, if we've queried a claim with you and then you provide some feedback at a later date, we'll release it in that month that you come back to us. All payments you receive will be via BACS and will be paid as a lump sum. And this is always on the last working day of the month. Remittances are automatically sent to your finance teams a couple of days before any payment is made, so they'll know that payments are due to be received and are on the way. We also provide at the same time, we also provide a detailed breakdown of payment amounts at property level. And this will show the individual school, the associated account reference, and the value that's been paid. And this report is sent directly to the person who submitted the claim. And then finally, if you have any queries with any of the payments, then you can contact us at any time. So you can either do this by our dedicated team mailbox or centrally via our inquiry service, and we'll come back to you through both of those channels. Right, I'm just going to hand over now to Jane, who's going to give you a demo of the NNDR claim service.
So I'm Jane. I'm the product lead for the NNDR service. So I sit more on a technical type team. And we've produced an NNDR service that will accept and validate those template claims that Dave's just run through. But I just wanted to go through first a second service that you will also need access to be able to use our NNDR service. So I'll give you a broad overview of both of these services in the slide deck, and then I'll move on to just show them in action, because sometimes it's easier to understand them if you see them actually working in reality. So DFE Signin is the first service that I wanted to walk you through. You might be familiar with DFE Signin already. If your role includes making other returns to the DFE, we basically use it as an authentication service across, I would say, the whole of the education landscape, you know, for schools, academies, local authorities, post-16 providers. And DFE Signin is there so that our education providers can gain logged in access to many of the DFE services and applications, of which NNDR is one. So there are a couple of tasks that you will need to set up inside of DFE Signin, whether you have or haven't already set up an account with DFE Signin. There's a couple of little bits and pieces that you'll need to do so that you can then gain access to the NNDR service. So the first thing that you'll need to do is create an account. This is a two-step process. We've got some notes around creating an account in the slide deck, but also there's a link out to the guidance that's got some good bits and pieces on how to do that. But essentially you'll need to create just your name and your email address and then verify that email. It's pretty standard across a lot of web apps at the moment. It must be a named email address and not a generic one. So you won't be able to use, I don't know, Office at your billing authority. I'm sure that you're not likely to use that one. It needs to be your given name at your billing authority for it to be accepted. And then you'll get a verification email to confirm that that email address does exist. And then you will be able to log into DFE Signin. And the next stage to creating your account is to connect your new DFE Signin account for you to your billing authority. And it's really important that you connect to your billing authority and not your local authority for the purposes of NNDR. We do have local authority accounts inside DFE Signin, but they are used with other services. NNDR specifically looks for you to be attached to a billing authority. So that's a really critical step for you to do. I will show you how to do this in DFE Signin in a minute. It's quite straightforward. You'll just search for your billing authority name and you can then connect to that. Now, once you've connected to your billing authority, the DFE Signin service will trigger out a request to your approver. So you, as an authority, will have an approver that will go in and say, oh yes, this person does work for us, and we'll grant them permission to attach themselves to our organisation. If the billing authority doesn't have an approver, because that does happen, then the request will instead be sent to our DFE Signin support team, and then your access will get processed differently, but it will still get processed. And then everyone should now have access to DFE Signin attached to their billing authority. And there is one final step inside DFE Signin, which is to add a service to your account. And so you'll need to go in and attach an NNDR service to your DFE Signin account. So it's a three-step process to get set up. But once you're set up in DFE Signin, you don't really need to think about it again. You will just literally access the NNDR form from the NNDR service. I just wanted to highlight those steps because that initial setup, people do sometimes find it a bit sticky. So we do get some queries about that. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware there is a little bit of setup needed before you can actually access the NNDR service. And if you are thinking of joining NNDR for the April time period, then it's probably worth thinking about sorting out your DFE Signin in advance of that. this is actually what the NNDR service looks like. Again, I will show you this in demo in a minute, but there's a couple of sections to it that is worth highlighting on the slide deck before we go forth into the demo itself. The first page, we've restructured, as Hillet mentioned, following on from some great user research that we did with some of our billing authority colleagues. We've structured to make this more useful. So we have put a couple of links on there, some of which you can't see on the screen grab that I've put in, that's my fault, to things that will be useful to you when you're submitting your claim. But the most important thing that I wanted to highlight here is that you can download that Excel template directly from the first page of the service. So you don't need to sign in to be able to get that current template. You can also get it from the guidance areas that we've got on gov.uk, but if you wanted to just get straight into the service and get the template from here, you can do that. And this will always have the most current submission template. The template doesn't change massively, but usually around just before we launch in the April, we do have a little look at it and make sure it's appropriate for the coming year. So it's possible that the template will change, particularly at the start of the financial year. So it's worth just making sure that you've got the current submission template. As I've mentioned, you don't need to sign in to access that, but you can download it from there and then populate your claim as Dave has already described to you. Now, this will download as an Excel file, but the service only accepts CSV files. If you're less familiar with Excel and how it works, which I'm sure with the group that we've got, that's not likely to be the case, but you can quite easily change Excel files into CSV files. So once you've populated the claim template with your data, we have it as an Excel file, incidentally, because it's got some lookup fields in it, which is not possible to have in CSV. And we wanted you to have the lookup fields so to make it easier for when you're filling it in. But you will need to click Save As and then change the file type to CSV before you upload the file to us. The next page is literally to, once you're in, you can upload your claim file. You can download the claim template again from this page. So, for example, if you're struggling to get your file imported into our service, you're getting error messages, you can download the template directly from this page and check things like headers and stuff like that. It also links out to the guidance if you needed a bit of extra support. So, but this is a logged in page. So between the page that we've just shown you on the previous one and this page, you will need to put in your credentials for DFE sign-in that you would already have set up. That choose file button there, choose your file, your CSV file, and then click save and continue. Now, all being well, you will be taken directly to the next page, but if you've got validation errors on your file, so the service doesn't like it, you will get some validation errors shown here. So all being well, you will get taken directly to a pre-submission page, and this page is so that you can double check. Just double check what you've put in. You can double check your billing authority name and the details about yourself before you make your submission. This is really just to help you. For example, some people might cover, I don't know if it works with billing authority areas, but certainly with other establishment types, one person might sit across multiple organisations and might be making a submission on behalf of more than one. So really, this is just a double check, a sense check before you go and submit your data through. And you can also double check that you've attached the right claim file here. You've got the option to go back, it literally just takes you back to the last screen so that you can change that file before you submit. There's some mandatory declarations that you will need to tick before you can submit. And then the final step is to click that big green button, which will send us the file. It imports it into our side. So our service scrapes the data out for us to pick up into those assurance check-in payment process that Dave's already talked about. And then you'll get a lovely confirmation screen. Things to highlight on the confirmation screen are a reference number. That is helpful to have. So if you have any queries, that is really useful. If you copy that out and keep that somewhere, it's really helpful just to drop that into any queries that you have about your submission or, you know, upcoming payments or anything like that. It just helps us to find your submission. And there's a link to the feedback form as well. And we'll also send you an email to confirm everything. If you wanted to set up your DfE sign-in, literally Google DfE sign-in. It's the first hit. And you can, if you've already got an account, you can click Start Now and sign into your account to attach your NNDR service to your account. If you haven't got an account, there's a little link above that green button to create one. You can put your first name, last name, and a good email address, not a Yahoo, Gmail, or generic email address, because they will be rejected. Once you're inside DfE sign in, so you'll click that tabby at the top to add an organisation. You'll click here to request access to an organisation, and it has to be a billing authority. So you can do this two ways. You can type billing authority into the search and see all of them, or you can type in your billing authority, type in the box why you want to attach to the billing authority. This is going to go to the approver at the billing authority. Once your billing authority attachment has been confirmed, then you'll need to log back in and add a service to your account. So again, this is on that first page. Once you've signed into DfE sign in, you'll need to click here, add services to my account. You'll need to find national non-domestic rates, NNDR claims. And I think I put that text exactly as it is in the slide deck, so you'll be able to see that in there. That's those three parts of setting up DfE sign in: creating an account, adding an organisation, and connecting to an NNDR service in that sequence. To get access to the NNDR, the billing authority claim form, you can search for NNDR for billing authorities in Google. The first hit will take you to our guidance, and then you've got form guidance there. Inside the form guidance is the link accessing the claim form, and the link is there. So that will take you to this. As you are a billing authority, you'll need to choose billing authority, and that will bounce you then to that start page that I showed you earlier. On this start page, as I've mentioned, you don't need to sign in. We can just download the submission template from here, and that will open that up. You can save it down and then make your adjustments as you need to. Otherwise, if you click Start Now, that should take you to sign in through into the form. Now, I can't show you that on this version because this is live and I am not a billing authority, but I've got a test version that I can show you. So if I click Start Now, so I've signed in and this has taken me straight to that upload a claim file page. I've already walked you through what's on this page, but I haven't shown you how it works. So I just wanted to show you. You'll choose file. I'll show you one that doesn't work first, so you can see the sorts of error messages that you're getting. Choose a file. When you click Save and Continue, you'll get some lovely error messages, and you can see column M in my Excel has got a title that's missing or mismatched, and what that means is it's not as the template. It's expecting the template title for column M and it's getting something different. Row 2 has 7 columns instead of expected 18, so it's got something missing in rows 2, 3, 4 and 5. So it's basically saying just go back to the template, which is up here. You can download to check it and just double check what you've got in those columns. So this one, You will have a billing authority unique identifier. So you will have essentially a code, an ESFA code for your billing authority. Dave mentioned before that we've got identifiers uploaded to our guidance area, which here we've got a bunch of spreadsheets down here to help you. These will have your billing authority codes in them as well as the school identifiers. So if you wasn't sure on what that code is, it will be there. But what we found with previous submissions is that because we ask for your identifier to be copied against every claim line, when you copy this down in Excel, sometimes people don't notice that they've escalated the number because they've copied it down and the Excel has just naturally filled the series down from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've got a sense check in here just to double check that you are putting your right billing authority code against all of your claims, and it tells you which one you should have. It's basically empty fields where we're expecting a number. So this one, it will have a school in row 2, but the claim data hasn't been populated. So this is to ask you to go back to these columns on these rows and just double check that you've got data in there where you should have data. Now, hopefully you won't have any of those problems. You'll just upload your file, click save and continue, and it will take you straight here. You just need to tick these because you won't be able to proceed without ticking them and submit your claim through. And then that will take you to the confirmation page. As mentioned, it confirms your billing authority, your reference number, where the email address, so where the confirmation has gone to, which email address, that will be the one that you've signed into DfE Signin with, and more information and help if you need it.
So the 25-26 NFF allocations include funding for NNDR. This is the 24-25 estimates rates figure plus your prior year adjustments. What we do is we do make a cash deduction for maintained schools where the billing authority is on the central system, and we recoup for academies. And NDR does remain part of the school's budget and expenditure. In terms of completing the authority performer tool then, so local authorities will import the NFF and NDR figure into the local factors worksheet. So this is the estimated rates figure that was provided last year on the APT. Closed schools and NDR must also be included in this. Local authorities that aren't on the central system should include prior year adjustments for 24-25, plus any inflationary increases to 25-26 on the APT, and that point is quite important. Local authorities can include prior year adjustments, but only in those cases where if the billing authority is on the central system for the first year only. Adjustments from academies must not be included irrespective of what the billing authority approach, so whether they're on the central system or not, because the bills are paid in real time for academies. We do have further guidance in the APT guidance, and once we share the slides out, you'll be able to access those links. So as mentioned on the previous slide, for dedicated schools grants, so where the billing authorities are on the central process, we will deduct the NFF and NDR figure for their maintained schools from the DSG payment, and for all local authorities, ESFA will recoup the NFF and NDR amount. For Section 251, the CFR, all local authorities must record the NNDR charges in Section 251 and CFR. The NNDR county guidance also has further details with some worked examples that will help to aid understanding when completing these. So looking ahead for the process for next year, then we will write out shortly then to the billing authorities that are not on the central system to confirm to us what the plans are for 25-26. Once we have all the responses in, we will confirm the outcome as this impacts on how the local authorities complete the APT as well. And more so for the 2-tier districts, we will need to confirm whether you are able to move across. So moving then into the next year, what we'll do, we'll update both the process and the claims guidance ahead of the system opening on the 1st of April for new claims. So in terms of the session today, then that concludes what we wanted to run through.